A closer look at who makes up the rebels in eastern Ukraine. Russia has repeatedly denied Ukrainian and Western accusations that it's supporting the separatists. But there are Russian nationals crossing the border into eastern Ukraine whose aim it is to help locals break away from Kiev. A group of such volunteer fighters agreed to be followed by a France 24 team of reporters. This is an exclusive report by Julia Lyubova, Sergei Kozmin and Ksenia Bolchakova.
We're 500 kilometers south of the Russian capital, in the city of Voronezh. It's 11 p.m. and we have a meeting with Evgeny. He recruits Russians to fight in eastern Ukraine.
We're an organization made up of volunteers. Our ideology is simple. We are all nationalists and Russian imperialists, descendants of the White Guard.
This office is the nerve center of the recruitment process. They need an account on Vkontakte, the Russian equivalent of Facebook, and a phone.
Every day I receive dozens of applications to join our armed troops. They leave their names and contact details. They say why they want to sign up. Our organization's goal is to liberate the territories we call Novorossiya. We want to liberate Russians who live there under the occupation of the Kiev junta.
They created the organization last February. Since then, hundreds of Russians have joined their ranks. Tonight, a group of volunteers is leaving for Ukraine. 25-year-old Norman is one of them.
I'm a Russian citizen. I've been volunteering for 6 months, since the annexation of Crimea. I'm a nationalist, and for me the issue of protecting Russian people is a priority. And despite what many in Ukraine think, the Russian state is not involved in this mission. If Russia was involved, this war would have been over in 4 days' time.
The truck is about to set off for Luhansk in eastern Ukraine, one of the pro-Russia separatists' remaining strongholds.
Tonight, we will try to take humanitarian aid across the border for our battalion and also for civilians. But the situation on the front has worsened. Luhansk is surrounded by the Ukrainian army, and I'm not sure if we'll manage to get through.
On the way, Evgeny and Norman stop to pick up supplies.
What we've got here is mainly cans of food.
As well as a few other essentials.
And here's our flag, the Republic of Luhansk.
There are no arms in the truck. The weapons they'll use are already in Ukraine. It's 2 a.m. by the time we leave Voronezh for Severnoye, a border checkpoint 400 kilometers away. By morning, we arrive in the border zone. We don't have the special authorization needed to use a camera here, but from the truck, we managed to film this column of Russian troops stationed a few kilometers from the border. Norman and Evgeny ask us to be discreet. The truck drives across a field to reach Ukraine, avoiding border guards and checks.
People from our battalion have come to meet us. They're escorting us in our cargo with that car over there. And when we arrive, we'll get our weapons.
And these are the weapons, mostly Kalashnikovs. A commander from the self-proclaimed Luhansk People's Republic gives out the weapons. Every new fighter gets a gun.
These weapons are Ukrainian. They come from Ukrainian armories, from defected police officers. So it was very hard to get a hold of them. These weapons are indeed war trophies.
And they take good care of their trophies.
Теперь уже можно работать.
Norman smiles, but he knows the dangers. He came to Ukraine to fight.
Mentally, I'm ready to die, like all of the fighters on this front. This war will be won by our sacrifice. For me, this territory is Russian. The communists gave it away unfairly, but it now must be returned to the Russian people.
Norman and Evgeny will spend the next few days with their fellow volunteers at the base, surrounded by weapons. All that's left is to wait until the order comes from the separatists to head to the front line.
Now, for more on this, I'm joined on set by Jacques Sapir, a renowned French economist who specialises in Russia. Hello, thank you very much for coming in. Now, in our report there, one of the Russian volunteers says that the Russian state isn't helping them, and by them I mean these people who voluntarily go to fight in eastern Ukraine from Russia. Do you believe that's true, that Russia isn't helping volunteer groups like the one we were filming?
Well, quite certainly, because there is many groups of volunteers, some of them on the very right side, like this one, some of them more on the left side, linked to the Communist Party of the Russian Federation, and they are not helped by the Russian government. That doesn't.
The Russians aren't helping any of them, or are helping some of them?
No, they are not helping them. The problem of Russian intervention is to be seen also, when Ukrainian troops are surrendering to the militia or to Russian troops, because very frequently Ukrainian troops, which have been isolated by the insurgents, have surrendered to Russian troops. And then the Russian troops have given back the weapons to the insurgent. That is a form of help of Russia to the insurgent. But it is not a kind of official help coming from Moscow.
So why is it then that Western powers in Kiev are convinced that Russia is really helping?
Well, for the last 10 days or even the last 2 weeks, Kiev has made a lot of statement saying that first that he destroyed a column of Russian tanks. It didn't show any proof of that. It didn't show any picture of that. Then Kiev said that he captured 2 vehicles from the parachutist division of Pskov in the Donbass territory. It didn't show them. It didn't show any proof of them. So, well, I'm on the feeling that accusations made by the Kiev government are extremely weak.
So what do you make of the media's role in all of this? Do you think that we're not being fed the right information?
Well, the media is mostly using Kiev informations, and that's a problem. I'm not to say that what is said by the insurgent is the truth. No, I think that both parts are using propaganda, but you have also to very precisely look at what is happening, and what is happening is a kind of civil war, and of course you have not to rely on just one side to get your information.
And what do you think is going to happen next militarily and at these talks in Minsk?
Well, on the military situation, it's very clear that now insurgents are making some very big victories. Actually, the insurgents have gone so far as Novoazovsk on the Sea of Azovsk, and even have reached the outskirts of Mariupol. In the north, insurgents have break out from the encirclement of Lugansk. They are making some sweeps and making some advance toward Slavyansk. So on the military front, it's absolutely obvious that the insurgents are winning. But we have also to consider the very huge asymmetry between the Kiev force, which are much more numerous, maybe by a factor of 5-1 or even 7-1, an insurgent. So I think.
So how could the insurgents be doing so well then if they're not being backed by Russia?
No, they didn't need to be held by Russia because I think that the Ukrainian army is a decaying army. It's not an army with a very high morale, and the National Guard, which is mostly a political organization made by people from the right sector, the private sector, and Svoboda, is not of any use in military fighting. So there is a kind of equivalence on the military fighting, even if the numbers are much more in favor of Kiev force. Okay. But in the end, insurgent will be stopped on maybe a line between Mariupol to Slavyansk and Slavyansk to the Russian border. And then, once they will be stopped, I think that some negotiation could begin.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for coming in. I'm afraid we run out of time. Thank you, though. And thank you for watching. That's it for our 2-hour live show. I'll be back in a few minutes, though, with a full news roundup for you. Stay tuned.